All right, everybody. Hi. Hello. Live again on the Saturday. Right. Listen to the podcast from the beginning, all 24 episodes. Listen to the YouTube from the beginning because it begins with the Qigong instruction, and that's the point of these talks is the Qigong because it forces the space to be available for the new, and that's what I bring is the new. I mean, I'm qualifying that statement, right? Because I know there's other people out there that want to do what I'm doing. But hello, where are you? to me. So yeah, we do the Qigong, we do 18 breaths, and then I talk to you about what it is, how we can celebrate, right? What we are as opposed to accepting this bullshit that we have, So that's what I'm about. I'm not about any having a good life and dying because it doesn't do anything to the wheel that we are on, right? And we keep revolving. And there's no psychological transformation, right? We've been running in safe mode, and that perpetuates a certain pattern on aggregate in society. So the whole thing is to point out, right, the truth of the fact. The fact of the matter is that our civilization as it is doesn't have an outcome, right? As it is, it'll either continually reset, right, as it's been doing so far, or it will wink out of existence, right? The only way to break that pattern, which has a limit, right? The limit is the Ouroboros, right? Right? We are eating ourselves, right? And we're running out of tail. And that's basically our souls. I've said this before, and that's quite a jump. But our souls are being impacted by the continuation of the turning of the wheel. And so, right, we want to avoid that. We want to avoid losing our divine spark, right, our divinity, which is possible to do. And I think individually, right, it's possible for each of us to do that. Where we lose our way, we've lost our path. And so that's what makes this so difficult, is that you can be living a grand life and be off path, So let's do the 18 breaths. Where we stand with our feet shoulder width, we bend our knees to obscure our toes, straighten the spine vertically and horizontally across the shoulders, right? We even the hips, right? We make sure that our legs are symmetrical, and we put our hands in front. Drop the chin and extend upwards with our spine as a mental image. So 3 breaths per. So, yeah, the mental image of the extension upwards. This is extending the bridge, right, to the source. And this is our gift that I speak of, right? Our connection to source through our heart center. And so I speak of, right, the body is the bridge, right? And to perceive wholly, it is with the entire perception apparatus, right? And so that's not just the five senses, obviously. When your bridge is optimal function, which is your body, right? It has extrasensory capabilities, right? And so to be aware of these, to be aware of this extra input, right, outside of the five senses, it requires a stillness, right, of the mind. And this stillness, right, is required for full and whole perception. And so it would be optimal, right, if we perceived wholly all the time, right? And so this is why meditation is not a thing you do that's divided, right? To be truly meditative is to be always, right, in a meditative state. And because in that state you are open, right, to receive, right? And also, right, in that state you are capable of receiving and taking action, right, of actualizing the new, which comes from, right, this emptiness, this stillness, right, that is required in order to receive. Right? And that reception is not, right, to claim it as your own, right, is to miss the whole point, right? It is the psychological transformation, right, that occurs in a meditative state removes the need for the defense of the sense of self, right? There's this feeling of completeness and a contentedness, right? And a higher ability, right? Your abilities are actually heightened, right? When your mind is still, and when your mind is still, then you're not doing this constant protection of your sense of self, this constant reevaluation, this constant measurement of self. So, in order to tap in to your true power, right, you have to surrender your sense of self, right? Stop hanging on to an identity, right? And then, right, that's when your capabilities are at their maximum, right? When you let go, when you surrender. And there's this term that came up over the last couple of days that was like, in the study of any spiritual practice, right, there is realization, there's realized versus actualized, right? And so one can realize the truth of the teachings, right? And it's really just one truth. Right? It's definitive and yet unbounded, right? And in fact, it's the measurement of our necessity to have a quantitative measurement of truth, right? That diminishes our ability to recognize the truth, which is immeasurable, right? So it can't be pinned down. So it goes against our proper definition of the truth as unassailable, right? It is that, right? But it's not what it is. In order, the truth, right, is only approachable, and so there's always more. Absolute knowledge is unobtainable, right? We can never reach that limit, right? And so that is the truth, is to recognize that all things are not knowable. Right? And so that, it's a fuzzy kind of truth. But that permits the entry of the new, right? Which doesn't come from the past, which is the set of the known. The known cannot be the origination point of the unknown. Right? And so in order to move forward, right, and to break the pattern that we have with this, as a collective, which is, as a collective, we exhibit a pattern that is the aggregate behavior of all of us individually. Right? And that's how we actually, this is manifestation, right? This is how we create our own reality, right? Because what we believe, right, is colors our decisions. And that's the peculiar quality of sentient beings, of being self-aware, right? Because, right, self-awareness implies in a separation, right? To be aware of a separate self, right? And to be aware of the self is to be aware of the past, right? Because there is no awareness of the self in the future. That, right, it cannot be accessed, right? The future is created, right, through a reference of what has gone before. So that's why in the standard model, the model for success is, this discipline, right, and consistency, right? That is a workaround, right? That is a workaround, right? Because it subconsciously creates the structure in your mind for you to believe the outcome, right? Is that this time and effort was required. And that points to a certain feature of the pattern, of the collective pattern. That is this this perpetual approach. This perpetual approach, right? And so this is where it gets difficult to talk about, because I just mentioned that the truth is, right, knowledge is only approachable. Absolute knowledge is only approachable. You cannot ever actually arrive there, right? But there's an inversion to this in our society, right? On the one hand, we believe that absolute knowledge is obtainable, right? But on the other hand, there's this perpetual carrot, right? That keeps us striving forward, right, for something that can never arrive. It'll always just be out of reach, right? And that's the, this cognitive dissonance, right? Which is that there's this collective hubris of our own ingenuity, right? But inside society or inside civilization, as individuals, there's this, right? That's the irony, right? That's the irony, is that as individuals, the outcome, the desired outcome, will always be left wanting. And that's because of this measurement of what it is to succeed, right? As an individual in society. Yeah, forgive me. This is right. This is why I keep talking about this, right? And this is why I lose probably some of you, because you get what I'm saying on the one hand, but also recognize that there is, a confluence of the opposing principles in which both things are true. And so, how do you resolve it? And I think it's important to explore these areas, right? And so when I say that the truth is unknowable, and that is the truth, right? That the only certainty is uncertainty. So that can explain it right there, is that there's a refusal to recognize that, right? In our collective psyche, there's a refusal. There's a refusal in our collective psyche to recognize that absolute knowledge is unobtainable, right? That it cannot be achieved. And that is, right, the truth that permits the space, right? But there's this, right, model that we all roll by, in which that the addition, right, the addition of knowledge So, yeah, what I'm trying to address here is this carrot that society presents to us, is this definition, right, of what it means to be successful, which is a destination, right, which is an arrival at what it means to be a successful human being, to have a good life, right? And that isn't updated, right? So at the same time that we think we know what it is, right? What a good life is, But at the same time, right, inside of our society, it can never be reached. Right? There's always some other thing that is missing. That if one has that, then they will be complete or happy. Right. So I apologize for the pausing, but this is what I'm struggling with, right? Which is this realization versus actualization. Um, for me personally, right? So the concept of Chiron, right? The wounded healer, right? Who else knows, right? Other than the one who's taken the wounds, right? And survived them, right? Some of them may be still bleeding, but that doesn't mean I can't fucking staunch your wounds, you know? And we all may fucking have to fucking jump ship while we all are still fucking bleeding. Like, we don't fucking have time, really, you know? But, right, I mean, I'm not, it's not like a doomsday fucking message here, right? There is an urgency, but there's a comedic aspect to it, because it's so simple, this tragic fucking repetition, right, of our society, right? We all focus on us individually. It's like insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? So that's basically what our civilization does. Like, to a fucking T, and on aggregate, right? That's what we're all doing, right? It doesn't matter how good of a run you've had, right? It doesn't mean shit about you, you know, because you're still playing into the cycle, right? Which changes nothing, right? And there's a want when someone says something like that, to be like, well, nothing can change. This is how it is, right? We hear that a lot, and that's not right. You can just be like, that's not the case. There actually is a purpose, right? There actually is a what to be done. The how comes as we do the what, right? As we recognize that there's a what must needs be done. The comedy is like, it's it's dark, it's fucking dark. Still fucking funny though. I mean, you have to laugh at the clown show. It's hilarious. But just laughing ain't enough, So realized versus actualized, and tuning into your own power, right, is not a thing that is like right, that will differentiate you. Right, tuning into your own power is an anti-differentiation. Anti-derivative, it's an integration. Right, you like my math fucking inversion? Yeah, just fucking integrate, as opposed to derivate, right? So that's what it is, right? Is this recognition, right, of the interdependence that we all have on each other, and the counterproductiveness, right? The big lie, right, is that we all include in our firmware, right, in our assumptions for every interaction, right? We all have the same fucking firmware, right? Not all of us, but most of us. right? And so that creates the same aggregate pattern in general. And that is not our nature. Um, our nature is to exchange with each other, right? There is no living without that. So that's primary, right? Everything else, right? Everything else is secondary. So perhaps this is what I struggle with, right? Perhaps the conflict, right, that we see, right, was necessary to arrive at this point, to arrive at a do or die point, right, for civilization. It's like for individuals when you're getting a tarot reading, right? If you have the major arcana, right, it means that it's out of your hands. This shit's going down. You know what I mean? Uh, so yeah, I mean, this is it right now. Uh, and to negate that this threshold that we are at is a mistake, right? That's a mistake. That's being controlled by the opposition, right? Which is, right, the opposition wants to maintain this structure, right, on a smaller scale and fully automate it, right? This is how we lose our souls. It's a repeated pattern, right? It's an automated fucking um, um, repetition of the same pattern, right? It's just like the cursor blipping on and off, basically. So, some people may think I'm beating a dead horse, and at this point, right? But I've already said that the what it is, right, that is required, and who's fucking with me, you know. I'm gonna have to, right? I'm not attached to the outcome, except that I have an intention, right? Um, so all y'all who trying to stop this, right? You won't be able to, right? And all y'all who are fucking uh, judging the content, right, as whatever it is, right? Right, you're the same boat, right? You're the same boat on the sinking ship, right? You're on the sinking ship. So yeah, so how do we fix it, right? It's easy. It's fucking easy, and it's a flip of the switch, right? But there is some shit that has to be laid down. Like right now, I'm fucking planting the seeds still, right? Because I wasn't sure that first fucking thing was going to germinate, right? I keep digging it up and planting it again. I'm fucking sorry, but you're welcome at the same time because now you comprehend, right, what's going on, which is that we have a false exchange. We have an exchange that is based on an inversion of the natural polarities, right? And if you listen to all of my shit from the beginning, you will get it, right? You will get it, and you will find it, right? If you start from the beginning, that you want to hear what's next, you know, like it's engaging for you because it's actually getting you to percolate, right? To convect, right? The old volume, right? With the new. The like permit the valve to be opened. Uh, yeah, and so the cultivation of it is the exchange, right? And it's an uncorrupted exchange of value, in which case there isn't a third party, right, that extracts a portion from every transaction. Right? It's all free, right? It's not free because it's not free to get paid like free payments. What it is that it's a free exchange, meaning that there's no fucking authority, right, that manages it. And so all of y'all would be like, fuck, that's impossible, blah, 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 blah. We need regulation, we need laws, because human nature. And it's like, you haven't been listening to what I've been saying, right? Is that's not our nature, that's a condition. Violence, right? War is actually a mental adaptation, right? To the current conditions. Right? It's not a physical adaptation, right? That's the mistake. And fucking think this one through, right? Or really work on this one, right? Because you can't just write it off, right? Because you've heard a portion of this argument before, right? It's a condition, right? The human condition is not our nature, right? We're conditioned to behave that way. It's a mental adaptation, right? To a scarcity model of value. It's how you have to operate when it's a scarcity model. This is the assumption that everyone holds in their firmware and bases their decisions off of, right? In all relationship, right? And so a scarcity model of value indicates and promotes a selfish mode of operation, right? And so, right, this is where everyone says, this is human nature. We can't avoid it. This is what will happen. In every organization, you're going to have an authority to enforce, right, to maintain order, right? And the authority requires the disorder in order to be rationalized. So the authority creates the fucking disorder. It's paid protection. Right? That's all it is, right? And so that's a perpetuation of control of the sources of value. Right? So that's the pattern that is perpetuated. And in order for that to fucking continue, you need this boom and collapse pattern, right? It is required to revalue the currency. Otherwise, the currency would be worth nothing, right? So to recognize that the value is not in the currency, it's in the life. It is in the living, because we live by exchanging value with each other. We create the value. So a artificial control of the value of a unit of currency is changing the value of one's life, of all of our lives, right? And that, right? Think about that, right? Do I have to say what it is and discredit what I just said, right? To discredit what I just explained, right? By saying what it is, because we've all heard this and everyone goes, I've heard that before. And then they categorize it, right? People are the value, right? To have a system that artificially diminishes the value of their lives, right? Is that right? Is that fucking right? No, right? That would be the epitome, right? That's what evil is, right? That's what I was avoiding saying. So I don't know how many times I motherfucking have to say it, but when are y'all gonna chime in? When are y'all gonna fucking, be like, yeah, this is bullshit, right? And there's a way to fucking deal with it, which is to abandon it. Right? It's a spiritual fucking war, and taking part in it, no matter how virtuous you perceive yourself to be based on what you're fighting against, you're just turning the wheel, right? You're just turning that wheel. It's a spiritual fucking war, right? And the only way to extricate ourselves, right, is to refuse the offer, right? So by participating, we accept the offer, right? This is why it gets perpetuated. We act like this is the only choice we have. This, what we're doing, right? We act like this is natural, in a way, like this is the only choice that we have to operate by. And So that's where everyone fucks up. That's where everyone fucks up. Right? It doesn't matter what side you're on, what fucking tradition, what lineage, doesn't fucking matter. Right? Everyone thinks there's only one choice. We have to fix what we have. Right? But there's no fixing it. Right? Every time we treat a symptom, another fucking thing pops up. There's no fucking fixing it. And that's what I was talking about before, right? Is that it is an inversion of the natural fucking order. It requires the attempt, right, at fixing it in order for it to stay going, right? And so, and that describes exactly what the individual does when they are constantly protecting their psychological sense of self, right? It is a never ending battle, right? There's always something else. So we let go of that shit. And so, right. So how do we get out of it and still live, right? The only way out of the forest is through, right? So we can pull this thing inside out, right? So there doesn't have to be this radical division, right? It begins, right, and grows and inverts the whole thing just by getting to a critical mass. And so the old corrupt exchange will die and the new free exchange will be born. And so that's what it's all about, because that's what human beings do to live, right? We exchange value with each other. That's the primary. Everything else, right, is secondary. So yes, we create the exchange, right? And that is how we get through, right? That's how we get out of the woods. Right? And the exchange is, right, everything that we make. But it begins with, because we have these, right? It begins with everything we need to survive first, right? And again, it's not fucking a giveaway, right? It's just, this is what people need, right? So you provide it for them, not for free, right? There's an exchange. It's just that nothing is extracted from the exchange. It all stays in, and it's evaluated via living, right? It's an analog evaluation. It's not digital. So, right, the exchange is all important. Everyone has the potential to offer something that could be beneficial to everyone, right? And so you don't discount anyone from fucking a chance to contribute, right? There's no fucking gatekeepers, right? So I can explain it further, but right, the exchange is everything. And so that's how we can implode the corrupt network, right? Is we create a source of value, right? Which is everyone fucking exchanging value, right? Actual value, and not fucking phantom value, right? Which is based on interest rates. Anyway, it's possible to do, right? We have the technology. We don't need to abandon technology. We just need to recognize our nature and make our technology work with our nature. And so in actuality, right? We can actually take steps, right? We actualize our knowledge, right? Instead of just being realized, right? And so I would say that the realization part is just this, it's this controlled opposition aspect, is that you can realize the teachings and still not operate by them, right? Um, and that, that is um, the definition of this is how it is here on earth and it'll never change, right? So it's realized versus actualized, right? We actualize the knowledge, right? Instead of realize it and continue to operate with the same firmware, with the same assumptions, right? Which is the assumption that value is limited and that everyone else is operating from a selfish standpoint, right? And that colors all of our decisions, right? Um, that is an inhibitor on our true potential, right? Uh, that is a insistence on a fixed um, um, supply of value that someone owns and control the fucking price on, right? You can't own life. That's slavery, right? And so that's the system that we have, right? Because they change the fucking price of the value of life. They change the value of life artificially with their boom and crash currency, right? With the fractional reserve system, right? And the fractional reserve system, whatever, it's just one of these steps that they took in the past that automated the system more thoroughly, right? Now we're in a position where they're going to increase the level of automation, right? Because they have the technology to do it. And, right, the only way we can avoid that is to shoot the moon and do this implosion, right? Where we implode the old network by pulling the sacred network out of it because it's already there. It's in us already. Um, that's why Krishnamurti says there's nothing to be done, right? We are fully evolved, right? There's nothing to be done except to recognize who we are, right? And who we are is, right? We have this gift, right? To operate individually, right? As a collective. And to recognize that our nature is to exchange value is to also recognize that violence only defeats our nature, right? It's only a governor on our nature. It only is a yoke on our true potential because it saps our power, saps our energy, right? Society is like a body, right? Right? We are all the cells. So let's have a healthy functioning body, right? So that we can operate at our highest potential, right? And so a healthy functioning body doesn't go to war with itself, right? So, despite those long pauses, I would appreciate it, right? If you got to this point, I do appreciate it. If you turned it off because there was like a indication of uncertainty there, right? Then, right, that's the old model, right? You're just looking for a confidence game, right? You just want to see confidence all the time, right? And confidence is an act, right? Uh, confidence can mask, all kinds of deficiencies. Right? So just looking for that, right, is, that's a heuristic that people do that you'll end up being about 70% correct. And that's a fail, right? So we're talking about whole perception, right? You don't perceive with preconceived notions. You perceive, you are aware, right? Awareness is timeless, and so it's not based on experience, right? Be fully aware, right? And also, right? Understand what relationship is, so your awareness can actually have uh, a actionable impact. So your awareness can be applied, right? So it's not just fucking a blank fucking Winnie the Pooh, right? Although that's pretty much what it is, because Winnie the Pooh is aware of everything that happens, right? Without judgment. So yeah, recognition that there's no fixing this, right? That we can actually pull it through in on itself, right? And right, it isn't in it. The intention is not to oppose the authority, right? The intention is to purge the authority, right? By absorbing the old network into the new and cleansing it, right? So if you can recognize, right, that uh, there's no fixing the system with the system, and that the argument over certain details is just an endless fucking cycle of talk, right? That repeats itself also. You'll notice in the past that people say the same shit in 69 as they do now. It's like every generation has the same fucking shit, right? And it's tiresome. So it's important to look at that, right? To recognize that. To recognize that there's no breaking the pattern by referencing the pattern. So to break the pattern, we recognize that we can't fix it with it, right? That there has to be a new exchange created, because when we say system, right, it's an exchange. This is how people live. They exchange energy and information with each other. So to recognize that fully, right, and that it's possible to build an exchange that could that perhaps that you know that can change the pattern, right? That can alter the pattern, right? And it's recognition that um, the more living that happens, the more the supply increases, right? And so to promote living as opposed to making it a competition, right? And counting out some people. And also, I mean, come on, our system, right? Fucking, uh, it requires the masses, obviously, right? It requires them. So we offer the masses something that is obviously way better, right? Than the implosion is a foregone conclusion. So create the source of value, open the new exchange, right? And I think I've figured out a way to do it. And it's pretty fucking ingenious. So it's all about the means of production too, right? Because we exchange value by our creativity. Like we all have these particular gifts. Each of us can do certain things, whether we work in functional teams or large groups, or we lead large groups, or we are solo or whatever, right? We all have these things we are born to the to be good at, and those things we exchange with others, right? Because they find it valuable, right? So, right, again, right, we were born to do that. So the value source that we create is the access to the means of production, right? All of them, all of them. right? And that's how we make our contribution, is that everyone contributes to the design of our culture, right? And our culture is the stuff, right? Um, People want to think culture is just entertainment and performance, and art and shit, and that's bullshit. It's the whole fucking thing. So anyway, yeah, that's it. I cannot be more cogent than that. Right? Um, I am asking for help because, um, for me to get to the position, which I've attempted, all of these years, right, to be able to actualize, to implement, to apply, right. Um, that the environment wasn't ready yet, but I have been preparing this whole time for the deployment, right, of the what, right, which is the alternative exchange. And it wouldn't be built that way at all. Right? It has to be holding. We have to shoot the moon. Right? So, you guys, whoever's fucking listening, you guys are the core group, right? You guys are the ones who know, and so, fuck, right? Um, I can't do it alone. That's what I'm getting at. Right? But I have to assume that I will have to at this point. So, no stopping me. You can't fucking stop me. Right? If you want to stop me, you can't. If you are indifferent, then um, what came to mind is fuck off. But if this resonates, right? If you comprehend, right, then it's as Nietzsche says. It's like, why not go for it? Why do the boring, right? Why do the regular? Because you're gonna get something good out of it. You're just coming back again, right? Until we get it fucking right. So I didn't come here to do that, and all y'all didn't either, because we are here to create, right? And this repetition of the pattern is it's a comedy, it's a joke. So there is a right. If we were going to create a breakaway civilization, right, you have to prepare to include everyone. Right. It's not a breakaway in a competitive system. Right. It breaks away and everyone joins it because it's better. And that is the key to everything that I say, is that it would be comparatively way fucking better, right? So let's make that comparison. Let's demonstrate it, right? Join the quest. Love.